NGO. I like, because all of you all are lawyers and you have already put forward your looking
activists and other NGOs. There has been great concern and interest in the issue of death in custody among all organizations, political parties in Malaysia for a very long time, because it is a phenomenon, or rather an act of state impunity which worries people very much. And most of all, I think I really want to recognize again, as Latifa did earlier this morning, the family members who are here. 3 family members managed to make it this morning. We've got Karunanidhi's family, Balamurgan's family, and also the family members of A. Kugan. Kugan's case, of course, was one of the worst that we have ever seen. But all these cases were terrible because, to put it in very simple terms, this was a case, all of these cases are about human beings taken away, whether for whatever offenses that they may be suspected of. Many of these offenses are actually minor offenses. Put in a place, surrounded by violent, hostile men, and tortured, beaten to death. That, in bald terms, is what is being done to these people. And that is a terrible, terrible way for anyone to die, in misery, alone, and in pain. So that is why this has to be prioritized by the authorities, and particularly by the new government. Now, the family members they've been through a lot. They have, to lose a family member under any circumstance is a terrible thing. People take years to get over the trauma of losing a loved one, but to lose a loved one in this manner, it plays in their mind forever, the suffering that person who was close to them would have undergone. And I know their pain, because I have sat with them, we have sat with them, through these years. And it has been terrible. It's indescribable, the feelings that they have gone through. And yet they have shown, each of their, I think, the individual stories of the families have been remarkable. They have shown a courage, although they are ordinary Malaysians who are living the ordinary lives. They have shown remarkable courage and persistence in wanting that small thing that the state could give them, the only thing that the state could give them after what had happened to their loved one, which is justice. Just justice was all that they needed, and this is what the system denied them. And the system continues to deny them until today. And justice will not, of course, bring back that person, but justice gives some modicum of consolation to the families, and it also sends a message to the authorities that they cannot continue doing this, and it may prove to be a deterrent. And that is where our work comes in. We do not want even a single other death in custody in this manner. It must stop them, it must deter them. And when each death in custody has happened, the wall of silence that has enveloped the incident is great. It is supported by the state. I have no hesitation in saying that. At every level, starting from the level of the police, who immediately try to cover up. We have got adequate evidence of that. And then the hospital, the hospitals and the pathologists play, of course, a critical role, as Eric has pointed out. And time again, we have found that the pathologists are in cahoots with the police in order to cover up the death. And this is not some reckless statement that we are making. In the case of Kugan, we complained to the medical council against him. There was an inquiry, and the pathologist, a senior pathologist, a university professor, in fact, was found guilty of infamous conduct for having done a botched post-mortem report in which he claimed that Coogan had died from water in the lungs, despite the fact that every inch of his body contained beating marks. And I recall an incident in another case, which is not here, but many years ago there was a case called Veerasamy, a death that occurred in the Ampang police station, one of the cases from many years back. I forget which year that was. And the family member, I remember, the son came and told me that when he was dissatisfied with the reason being given by the pathologist told him, look, if you're not satisfied, go to the next room, the body is there, all cut and open, go and take a look yourself. Which, having seen the bodies that have just been subjected to autopsy, I can tell you that is an immensely cruel thing to say to a family member who has just lost his father, who just wants to know what happened and who is suspicious of the circumstances in which the death occurred. So that was that. And then of course you've got the mainstream media, which, to be fair to the journalists, they are quite sympathetic, but unfortunately the editors are bound by the policies of the proprietors. The proprietors, as you know, the media prior to Malaysia Baru was controlled by the government. So these stories did not make it to the mainstream media. And for decades, that was another reason why the deaths in custody were continuing and the police could behave with impunity, because it was all secret, no one knew about it. And no other institution could help. Parliament, the speaker suspended me just for asking too many questions about Karunanidhi's case. There are no proper parliamentary inquiries, nothing is done. And the Attorney General's chambers, one would have expected some degree of professionalism at least from the Attorney General's chambers, but they, if you can see from the cases that we've looked at, almost all the cases ended up in either acquittals or the sentence that was given was extremely small. In Coogan's case, I think it was just 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, for murder. 3 years for murder, which, you know, after your 1/3 discount, you come out after 2 years. And in Dharmendran's case, acquittal. So that shows that the Attorney General's chambers showed very little interest in pursuing these cases in a thorough professional manner and getting the necessary convictions, so that it would be a lesson to the police force that they cannot conduct themselves with impunity. So you can see it was a blanket failure across the board. And here's the other thing then. Why this cover-up? At a certain level, and in fact very importantly, it is linked to the political situation, at least until May the 9th, but I have some problems on what has happened since May the 9th also, the general election. But the problem is that that culture of impunity of the police is protected by the entire political establishment, I mean the government of the day. The previous government protected that culture of impunity for decades because there was a quid pro quo. The quid pro quo is, I will not inquire too deeply into what you do in your police lockups, but you will protect me from political dissent by taking action against the civil society, political opposition, and others who speak out against the government. So in other words, it helped the government to have a police force that had a culture of impunity embedded in it, because then that very police force could ignore matters like freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and take action against those who speak out against the government. This was the root cause of the culture in which any kind of serious wrongdoing by the police, such as in death in custody, was ignored by the government of the day, or the government of the day helped actively to cover it up. This is what they did all this while. And even now, as Ambika pointed out, the current IGP has said that they're not against the formation of an IPCMC, which is an independent police complaints tribunal. But even then the IGP has said that subject to the rights of the police being protected. What right is that? When you have committed murder in police custody, you have only one right, which is the right to a fair trial. That we can guarantee. But the very fact that they say that means there is resistance. There continues to be resistance. And the previous government caved into the resistance by the police when they came out outright and said that they will not agree to the formation of an independent complaints mechanism, which is the norm in any other country, and it is necessary. There's no other way to ensure that the police do not commit murder in their lockups and in their cells, or continue torturing people in the lockups and in the cells. So I hope, and since May the 9th, is there a great difference? You see, it is not every case that the family comes to the lawyers and the wrongdoing and the murder, the torture is highlighted. For every case that we have managed to highlight, there must be 10 others, 20 others, 50 others that have gone under the radar. There are so many deaths in prisons and also in lockups that are unaccounted for, where the authorities say it's caused by fatty liver, it's caused by pneumonia, it's caused by water in the lungs, and there are just not enough lawyers to go around. There are just not enough families that are keen enough to pursue or who have access to legal advice or justice in order to pursue the matter. Now, after May the 9th, after May the 9th, there was the death of the Navy cadet in Lumut Naval Base, which is Sose Manikam Joseph, and he was perfectly healthy young man who went in. After 5 days, they said that he had died from water in the lungs again, the ubiquitous water in lungs again. And that was in May. It is now September, and we find that the new government, which was supposed to be committed to human rights and the rule of law, has done nothing to get to the bottom of the Sose Manikam case. In fact, the defense minister came as issued a statement saying that they will take the necessary action. But right now, the family of Sose Manikam is in a protracted battle with the police, with the hospital authorities, simply in order to get the post-mortem report of Sose Manikam out to them. They are now at that stage of the battle. Again, we see in the new Malaysia, the health department, the Perak health department, actively blocking the release of the post-mortem report to the family of Sose Manikam, being confrontational, being difficult, and meanwhile the police in Sose Manikam's case are dragging their feet, not investigating, despite the fact that we've got WhatsApp messages from the deceased to the family at the time saying, I am being tortured. Do you need more than that? And yet, there is no movement. So this is happening under the new regime, and I know that the new government has got a very heavy legislative schedule and many reforms to be implemented. But when it comes to life, a human life, no matter how ordinary that life is, I think that for us, that must be prioritized. The government must prioritize the protection of human life. So I hope they will move very quickly in the coming session of Parliament to push through the IPCMC, and also to make sure that the other institutions such as the Health Ministry, the Home Ministry, the police, all of them stop this practice of covering up deaths in custody. Thank you very much.